Well, we can make some general statements about sleep that dovetail with the alcohol thing. And look, I'm not anti-alcohol. I don't have an alcohol problem. I have a drink every once in a while, no big deal. But I'm one of these people that can either do it or not do it. Whereas some people, they really enjoy alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people. It's just never been my thing. But in any case, sleep, meaning getting enough quality sleep, 80% of the nights of your life. And I always say the other 20%, just try and make the fact that you're not getting enough sleep for fun reasons, out with friends, relationship, like ideally it's not because you're lying in bed stressing or etc. But try and get enough quality sleep 80% of the nights of your life. How much sleep do you need? Enough to feel rested during the day. Maybe you need a short nap. Napping's great, as long as it doesn't screw up your nighttime sleep. One way to avoid the afternoon crash, by the way, is don't drink caffeine for the first hour and a half to 2 hours after you wake up. Let a bunch of the sleepy molecules get cleared away. Sleepy molecules, things like adenosine, blah, blah, blah. And then drink your caffeine. At first, it's kind of painful to do, but you'll just go all day feeling great. It's pretty fantastic. Alcohol disrupts the architecture, the quality of your sleep. You can fall asleep, but the sleep you get is not restorative. And the first part of your night when you sleep is really for repair of the body, growth hormone release, etc. The second half is when two things happen. One is you tend to have dreams that are very emotionally laden, but you are paralyzed. You have sleep atonia. You can't move, and it's a kind of trauma therapy. You actually, if you ever had like a disturbing interaction or something's bothering you, if you get a few nights good sleep, you're like, okay, like it's like water under the bridge. If you don't, people tend to kind of maintain the emotional load of things. Now, the sleep atonia is kind of interesting. Has anyone here ever woken up and you were still paralyzed?
Yeah.
And they
That
jolt?
happens to my wife. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, it happens more often to cannabis users, but it's not uncommon for non-cannabis users too. So you wake up and it's just like you kind of jolt awake. It's pretty terrifying actually to be wide awake, but you can't move. But that's what it's like in that second half of the night of sleep. If you drink alcohol, you tend to screw up the first part of the night of sleep. And so the physical repair doesn't happen as well. Now look, I'm not somebody saying like you can never have a glass of wine or a cocktail or something. It depends on how many other healthy things you're doing and how many other unhealthy things. This is important.
Yeah.
So, if you were to be really strict, you'd say the data point to the fact that no alcohol is better for your immediate and long-term health than any alcohol. And people say, well, red wine's good. And in these blue zones where people live to be 110, they're doing a lot of other things too. The reality is the resveratrol in red wine, you'd have to drink so much red wine in order to get the resveratrol. You'd be drinking all day. It's just that argument is feeble. But if you're gonna drink, you can probably have 2 drinks, maybe 3 per week, no problem. No problem.
Total drinks per week.
Per week. But if you're going to drink more than that, and I'm not, listen, I don't tell people what to do. I just say, but know what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, then you probably want to make some effort to do other things right. For instance, I would hope that people are avoiding hard drugs like cocaine and amphetamine.
Yeah.
Why? Because they lead to huge increases in dopamine that basically reward only one thing, cocaine and amphetamine. And over time, everything else feels a little weak in comparison, right? It's an extreme experience that you didn't really have to earn, right? There's nothing earned, and so then everything else seems a little bit weak, and so cocaine and amphetamine are very, very bad, and opioids are just really bad. And the fentanyl thing now is super scary, where young people, old people, they're just dying. So let's just put those in heroin. Let's just put those in a category of let's not even entertain. I think that the current estimate is that more than 80% of college students take Adderall, Vyvanse, or Ritalin at some point. So it's amphetamine, and if people are struggling with it, one incentive to get off of it is that it's not good for your heart. It tends to push all the blood towards sort of core organs. It's like stress response. Because when you're stressed, your pupils get big and your vision gets this narrow. That's why they put blinders on horses, so that they don't look around and focus on other things. I mean, it'll shrink the penis, not permanently, but it causes vasoconstriction.
In fact, if we just take a step back and we look at the scientific data on how much the dopamine firing increases in response to different things, you get a pretty interesting window into how your brain works and why you might be motivated or not motivated. Let's say you're hungry, or you're looking forward to a cup of coffee, or you're going to see your partner. Well, your dopamine neurons are firing at a low rate until you start thinking about the thing that you want or the thing that you're looking forward to. Let's say you're craving chocolate or a good meal a steak if you like steak, or a nice plate of pasta if you like pasta. When you eat that food, the amount of dopamine that's released in this reward pathway goes up about 50% above baseline. The neurons there go from firing, 3 or 4 times per second to, 6 or 10 times per second. It really depends, and these aren't exact numbers, but if we were to measure the amount of dopamine that's released, it goes up about 50%. All right? Sex, which is fundamental to our species' continuation and reproduction, although it doesn't have to be for conceiving children. Sex does release dopamine, and it increases dopamine levels about 100%, so basically doubles them. Nicotine, of the sort that's in cigarettes, or some people are taking nicotine in supplemental form, increases the amount of dopamine about 150% above baseline. It also does some other things that we're going to talk about, but nicotine does that, and it's kind of interesting that nicotine would increase the amount of dopamine in your brain very quickly, within seconds. That's 150 times over baseline, as opposed to sex, which is 100% above, or food, which is 50%. Cocaine and amphetamine increase the amount of dopamine that's released 1,000-fold within about 10 seconds of consuming the drug.